Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to talk about is the Grand Prix de Genève. These are essentially the Oscars, the Academy Awards for watches that are held every year in Geneva. And they start around June, July is when they have the competing watches enter, and then they put them up for nominations, and finally in November they have the big prize ceremony. So today what I want to do, if you're familiar with it, that's fine. If you're not, that's fine too. And if you're sort of familiar with it, provide some details. Now, if you're familiar with the Academy Awards, all of these actors and directors and so forth, people involved in that business, do everything they can to win an award. The awards are I'll refer to it as GPHG. I've tortured the French enough. The GPHG, the purpose is to highlight and yearly reward the most remarkable contemporary creations and to promote watchmaking, essentially. And the Oscars are the same thing except for the movies. Now, just like in the movies, the GPHG has categories, and there are a total of 9 categories. And so these include, they're listed there, the ladies complication, a new one called time only, men's complications, iconic, tourbillon, calendar, and astronomy, mechanical exception, chronograph, sports, jewelry, artistic crafts, petite aiguille, challenge, and then there's finally the grand prize that's called the aiguille d'or, or the golden hand. Aiguille actually means needle, but it's used to refer to what in English we call watch hands. The aiguille they don't look like hands, and they don't always look like needles. Okay, so those are the categories, and the way it works, who makes the decision of who's good and who's not? Well, they have 2 rounds. In the first round, they have members of the Academy. Now, the Academy is made up of a number of different people. I think there are probably around 900 or so in the Academy. And they have what they call colleges, 7 colleges, and these are groupings. The first one is watchmakers, designers, and artisans. The second is watch-related industries, subcontractors, component suppliers, the guy who makes the gears and the hairsprings and all of the different parts. Educators, historians, watchmaking experts, distributors and retailers, journalists and influencers. I'm sort of just a video journalist. I hate to use the term influencer, but I'm told you're an influencer, which to me is a lot of responsibility. Okay, the 6th group is also called the brands. These are the CEOs and presidents and founders of companies that have watches in competition. And finally, there are collectors and customers, aesthetics, and other personalities. In other words, some people have these super collections, and they're I guess you'd call them personalities who love watches. And so they like sports figures and things like that. Okay, so they make up the membership of the Academy. Now, so in the first round, what they do, they choose 6 watches from each of the 9 categories. Okay, now the second round is a 30-member jury, and the jury president is chosen by the GPHG Foundation Board, and then 14 Academy members are drawn from lots from the 7 colleges. In other words, there's 900 people are scattered all over the place, but they try to draw lots from each of the 7 colleges. Those are the different types of people involved in the Academy. And then 14 other members are chosen by the president, and this is within consulting with the GPHG Foundation Board. And then there's the winners of the previous year's Aiguille d'Or that also are part of the jury. And so then they take the 90 nominations that are made in round one, and they choose the winners. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's how the winners of the Grand Prix. Now, for watch collectors, especially new watch collectors, sometimes people will sort of go off on popular brands. And I suppose that's fine if that's what you want to do. But if you're really interested in horology, there's a lot of good lessons that I found anyway in looking at the GPHG winners and so forth. One of the things you can learn from winners is that each entry are what they call the competing watches. There's a whole bunch of those, and you click on one of those, and then all of these details like this come up. This is one that was a winner of the men's watches by Kerry Voutilanen, which I probably always mispronounce. Now, one of the things I always look for is the movement. And one of the things I found out is that a lot of the winners have manual winding, which I happen to like anyway. And the other thing is that they have frequencies that are under 28,800 or 4 hertz. Now, most watches today, you go out and you look at all kinds of different watches, and they're going to be 4 hertz, 28,800 semi-oscillations per hour, which there's a lot of reasons that they have for that. But the top high-end watches tend to have lower frequencies. I've asked them about that, and they come up with all kinds of reasons. But I particularly like lower frequencies too. They last longer. There's less time between repairs and so forth. A lot of good reasons for lower frequencies, but most of the winners, like I said, this is how I found out about it. I didn't decide, well, this is what I want. I looked at this material. Now, within each watch, there's a lot of write-up. And so below the part, I just sort of did a screenshot of what I could see, and brought up one of the things. And you can look at those. Now, this particular watch is 74,000 Swiss francs from a couple of years ago. That's a lot of money, and I can't afford that. And so you say, well, what good does this do? Looking at watches like that. Well, what I like to do is find out what watches, by this process that they have, determine, hey, these are good watches. For example, this one was in 2005. This is an FP Journe chronometer surveying. It won the men's award, I believe it was in 2005. And it's been one of my favorite watches. And it just sort of, I think it's the only one I have now. I used to have another one, but it's sort of fun to have one. Say, hey, this is my Grand Prix winner, no matter what it won for. Now, the other thing about it is that you can find affordable winners. For example, and there are 3 categories that tend to have the most affordable one. The sports category that keeps changing its name. They were called divers, and then they were called sports again, and all things. So if you look at the history, that just starts in 2001, and you'll find the categories change. Okay, like they changed again this year. They have this new category called time only. Anyway. So here are 3 watches that I think are nice watches, and they're relatively affordable. All of the prices are in Swiss francs, and the Swiss francs are, I don't know, they're about 10% more than the dollars right now, but they go all over the places. The dollar goes up and down, or the Swiss franc goes up and down, the exchange rate is, but they're pretty close. They're also pretty close to the euro as well. This Eberhardt and Company Skasograph 300 is 2,640 Swiss francs. Now, you can find these used for a lot less than that. And that's a sort of be a fun watch to have. I like this watch. Another one, this one I used to have, and I got so many other watches that I like. I never disliked that watch. I just wasn't using it, so I thought it's a good idea to sell it. It's a Harboring 2 Felix. This one won the Petite Aiguille. By the way, too, the Petite Aiguille is for watches from 3,500 Swiss francs up to 10,000 Swiss francs, and this is in the middle of that category. They're based not on function but on price. Pretty much it. The least expensive category is called the challenge category, and these are watches from zero, not too many of those, up to 3,500 Swiss francs. This is one of the challengers. All three of these won, and they're all relatively affordable. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, I've never heard of those before. No, you probably haven't, and that's why they're really worth finding out about. I think more, watch collectors have been around the block, I'm sure, familiar with these. And again, that depends on your taste and so forth and what you like. I'm not one who sees watches as investments. I get my watches and collect watches in terms of the quality of the watch and what I like. People keep saying, well, what about the resale value? Well, the value of a watch really never changes. What changes is the price. And I hate to admit it almost, but the ones I've chosen all have gone up significantly. And to some extent, it's like discovering what's worthwhile first. Anyway, these are the lower end of it, but there's a lot of different kinds of things. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, a few years ago, I started this thing called Grand Prix Picks. There's a web page on it that's listed below, it's a Facebook page. And if you pick winners, you can win watches. And there are 3 watches, and I've had more guys who have said this is the first time I've ever won anything. And it's simply figuring out, well, who you think's going to win, who has the best watches for these 9 categories that they have, and you put them in this, and you enter into the Grand Prix Picks, and who knows, you might win. There are prizes for who picks the watches who have been nominated, the watches that actually win, and finally the grand prize winner. 1 or 2 years we've had where nobody won because nobody picked the grand prize winner. So it's sort of like the final Jeopardy, I guess. You can still win, just getting by dumb luck, I guess. But better than dumb luck, it really helps to know this stuff. So if you're interested, enter and maybe win a watch. This is part of Watch Art Sci. You're invited to subscribe if you like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.